The kitchen smelled of Earl Grey tea and something else. Age, maybe. My parents' house always smelled the same. A little dusty, a little like lavender, a little like the crackle of dried flowers in a vase long forgotten. I'm 33 with my own marriage, my own habits, and my own sense of humor. One my husband doesn't always get, though we managed to laugh together anyway. That evening, we were joking around, teasing about how little I resembled my dad. It happens. Hey, what if you're not his? My husband joked, tossing a grape at me. Sure, let's do a DNA test, I shot back, laughing. So I did, as a joke. No expectations, no anxiety, just a haha moment. I sent in the saliva sample, paid the fee, and forgot about it. A couple of weeks later, an email popped into my inbox. I opened it casually, coffee in hand, expecting nothing more than a coupon for sneakers. Instead, I got a gut punch. Negative. I wasn't my dad's daughter. I sat there, stunned, then reread it, and again. The laughter from that earlier conversation was now miles away. My husband leaned over my shoulder, reading the email. Wait, what? He managed slowly. I didn't respond, and then, like in some bad drama, there was a car ride. Long, silent, with my empty gaze fixed out the window and my heart pounding stupidly in my chest. I'm 33, but in that moment, I felt like a child again. The kind who still believed family was an unshakable truth. Mom had always been the moral compass in our lives. No lies, no drinking, no cheating, no yelling. Be better than this world, she'd say. Her closet was full of scarves for Sunday service. Her wallet held a picture of St. Nicholas. Every Easter meant church and candles. Every conversation carried a trace of righteousness. I walked into her house without knocking. She was in the kitchen ironing a tablecloth, just like always. Mom, I need to ask you something. She looked up and smiled. What is it, honey? Who's my father? Silence. The kind that feels like a wrecking ball swinging into a house. Her face twisted like fabric wrung out to dry. Then she slumped into a chair, deflated. You know? I nodded. She exhaled sharply. No denial, no shouting, just eyes clouding over like an old photograph. He didn't know, she said softly. You weren't supposed to either. And then it all came pouring out like dirty water from a busted pipe. Words I'd never unhear. My father wasn't my father. My brother wasn't from the same man as me. There had been another, a third, who fathered a baby that didn't survive infancy. Mom had lived how she could, or how she wanted, or maybe how the circumstances allowed. It didn't matter anymore. Every man was temporary, every one a story. But my dad, the man who raised me, loved me, took me fishing, fixed my bike, and cried at my wedding. He either didn't know or chose to stay anyway. I thought it would never come out, she whispered. I was scared. I spent my life trying to make up for it. Going to church, fasting, praying, like it could cleanse it all. I looked at her and didn't know who she was. The woman I'd called Mom now felt like a stranger. What about Dad? Did he know? She shook her head. No, he didn't. I swore I'd take this secret to my grave. The house tilted. Something inside me crumbled. The foundation on which my entire life had rested was gone. Who am I now? Whose am I? What's in my blood? I stepped outside. The wind was sharp, cold. One thought hammered in my head. How do I live with this? In the car, my husband was silent. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't the person he thought I was, that everything was different now. But he just took my hand, firmly, steadily, without words. Days passed, then weeks. I haven't forgiven her yet. I'm not even sure if I want to. I don't know what to do with the woman I called Mom, who built her life on a lie. I don't know if I should tell Dad. Probably not. Sometimes the truth is poison, but I do know one thing. I'm not the product of her sins. I'm me. I grew up, I loved, I learned, I failed, I fought, and I stood back up. I'm a person, messy, vulnerable, strong. And whatever flows in my veins doesn't change how I've lived my life. You can live with a broken foundation. You just have to learn to walk carefully, or build a new one that's entirely your own.
In the fall of 2017, I moved to Chicago. At the time, it felt like everything was just beginning. A new life, new possibilities. As they say, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I had a few $100s in my pocket, a good supply of determination, and a heavy sense of weariness from small-town life behind me. The city greeted me with wind and gray skies, but I didn't care. Aesthetics weren't a priority. 3 days after arriving, I landed a job as a low-voltage electrician. Not glamorous work, but solid enough for a fresh start. I stayed in a shared dorm room in an old industrial building. Bare bones but livable. There was a mattress on the floor, a boiling kettle, scribbles on the walls from former tenants, and a fine layer of dust on the windowsill, like it had been waiting for someone new to show up. After a couple of weeks on the job, I realized I needed a laptop to configure equipment on site. One with a working battery, since power wasn't always guaranteed on location. I found a listing on Craigslist, affordable, seemed in good shape. Reached out to the seller, and we agreed to meet near the Logan Square subway station. The guy waiting for me looked about 25. Friendly, backpack slung over one shoulder. He pulled out the laptop, powered it on. Everything seemed to check out. Said he was selling it for his sister, who didn't have time to deal with it herself. Pretty standard story. I handed over the cash, he thanked me, shook my hand, and disappeared into the crowd. That was the last I saw of him. Back at my room, I unpacked the laptop, set the kettle to boil, and powered it up. No password screen. The seller hadn't wiped anything. The browser was still open, tabs filled with social media profiles, messages, and photos. I paused. It felt like I was standing in front of a door to someone else's life. All I had to do was turn the knob, and there'd be no going back. Curiosity won. I told myself it was just a technical sweep, just checking for leftover files. But I knew that was a lie. And that's how I met Kelsey, the laptop's original owner. A young woman, apparently also new to Chicago, originally from Indiana. Lived with a roommate in a tiny apartment, worked odd jobs, took out payday loans, tried to get by. Her messages with her boyfriend were a mess. One day he loved her, the next he screamed at her, then he begged her back. A shaky emotional roller coaster. Arguments, suspicions, crying emojis. It all read like she was running from her own reality. She didn't seem to want a steady job, or maybe didn't know how to get one. Her roommate, Dana, also from Indiana, came off more focused and driven, not without quirks, but sharper. Dana had a boyfriend named Mike. In their messages, he came across like the perfect guy. Caring, generous, reliable. The photos showed a slim guy with a kind face, always standing next to his well-loved Honda Civic. He drove the girls around, lent them money, gave thoughtful gifts. He believed in love, you could tell. Then came September. The chats between the girls got more personal. They started fantasizing about a better life. Upscale restaurants, expensive clothes, men in suits, talk about making it big. Eventually, a new character popped up, a man in his 40s from Miami. He invited them to a staff training retreat, promised to cover flights, hotel, food, even some leisure time. The word training was clearly a front. Nobody was under any illusions. They discussed it for 5 minutes, flights booked, bags packed. Stories made up for the guys, it's a work thing, we'll be busy, don't worry. Dana hugged Mike goodbye. Kelsey sent her boyfriend a heart emoji and a short love you text. 2 weeks of Florida sun. Photos showed beaches, champagne glasses, hookah smoke. A man in a white shirt with the shadow of a wine glass across someone's leg. Their chats were full of giggling, inside jokes, and vivid recaps of their sexual adventures with the passionate Miami guy. There were lines like, "Mike is such a sweetheart. If only all guys were like that. And we make the perfect team, babe." I read through it all like someone watching a play with a tragic ending you can't stop. I felt disgust, sadness, and this oddly naive craving for justice. I knew it wasn't my business, but I couldn't look away. It just felt too raw, too open, too wrong. When the girls came back, they messaged each other about how great everything had gone. Kelsey texted Dana, "He's not my type, but did you see that watch?" Followed by a stream of laughing emojis. Dana replied, "It's all about the vibe. Mike will be fine. He's a good guy." That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside. I had to be up at 6 for a job site in Joliet, checking signal cables near a chemical plant. But I sat at the desk, staring at the screen. My hand moved on its own. I opened the messages. selected the key threads, screenshots, a few photos, dialogues without ambiguity, just raw, detailed truth. Stuff no one was meant to see. I logged into Kelsey's account, opened her chat with Mike, wrote one line, "Take a look," attached the files. 5 minutes later, she must have noticed the breach. The accounts were immediately shut down, passwords changed, all sessions logged out. I closed the laptop, laid down on the mattress, pulled my jacket over me like a blanket. Morning was coming, and so was another workday. What happened after that, I don't know. I didn't want to know. I was just a bystander. A stranger handed someone else's suitcase full of secrets. But maybe, just maybe, that night someone learned a truth they were never meant to hear.
California's sun burned into my shoulders, and the air carried the tang of salt water, the sweet scent of sunscreen, and the distant laughter of beachgoers. A gentle tune played near the infinity pool, something light and tropical, with a pop beat underneath. This was not the kind of resort you stumble upon by accident. 5-star luxury, a seafood buffet, waiters dressed in crisp white uniforms, and pristine cleanliness. A place where you escape not only the daily grind, but yourself. I'd been lounging by the pool for days, sipping cold craft beer and worrying about nothing except not getting sunburned before I had to fly home. It was somewhere between my third and fourth pint when I noticed them by the edge of the water. She was blonde, maybe 35, possibly older. Tall, with a well-maintained figure. Clearly someone who took care of herself. Her face had soft features, very all-American, slightly weary but glowing with happiness. He was lean and tanned, with a short beard and dark sunglasses. His eyes, though obscured, seemed intense. When he looked at her, there was so much tenderness that, even as a lifelong cynic, I felt a pang somewhere inside. They laughed, splashed in the water, and talked in a mix of accented English and something else I couldn't place. She kissed his cheek. He held her by the waist. At some point, I found myself close enough to strike up a conversation, because that's what happens on vacations. "Are you two together?" I asked, without malice or ulterior motives, just out of curiosity. She laughed. "Yes," she said. "We meet here every year, 6 years in a row now." He nodded, adding with an accent, "She is my love, only one, my beloved." I raised an eyebrow and smiled. California's sun, summer, romance, it all fit into a story as cliched as it was warm. "Where do you live?" I asked. "I'm from Michigan," she said. "He lives here in San Diego. He works at the marina, sometimes does boat tours. And me, I don't work? You don't work? And who pays for all this?" I gestured around at the lavish resort. "It's not cheap, you know?" She looked at me calmly, almost defiantly. "My husband, your husband?" I nearly choked on my beer. "So you're married?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I have a son. He's 11. My husband is a good man, hardworking, supportive. We've been together a long time. But," she glanced at the man next to her, "I love him. My Turk." He smiled at her but didn't follow every word. She leaned in and kissed him briefly. I was stunned. A husband, a son, and annual trips to another man across the country? Not for a day or two, but for a whole week, every year for 6 years straight? "Does he know?" I asked finally. "My husband?" She smirked. "No, of course not. He thinks I'm on a girls' trip. Says I deserve it." The Turk watched her with such adoration that it felt as if the world around him disappeared whenever she was near. He couldn't catch all of our conversation, but he understood enough from her tone. He took her hand and pressed it against his chest. She kissed him on the lips. I stepped away, not out of morality, but because the air felt tight, claustrophobic. Not from judgment, but from the sheer weight of it all. Somewhere in Michigan, there's a man who has no idea his wife flies off to San Diego each year to be with someone else. He might be at home making breakfast for their son, completely oblivious that his wife is wrapped in another man's arms by a pool on the Pacific coast. And there I was, sitting by the pool, listening to someone say "I love you" with a thick accent, and realizing the world isn't black and white. It's painted in shades of loyalty, lust, lies, self-deception, and the aching desire to feel alive. Because in her eyes, there was no cruelty, no malice, only longing for something she didn't have at home. I went back to my chair, poured myself another beer, and stretched out under the sun. But one thought wouldn't leave my mind. If your wife, Susan, takes annual girls' trips to San Diego, buddy, you're a fool.
The house smells of cornbread, fried potatoes, and silence. Not the kind that crushes your ears, but the kind where two men, father and grown son, live easily side by side. We talk little, the way men often do, but we understand each other without fuss. No doors slam here anymore. No dishes fly against the walls. No woman's laugh drifts down the hallway. No little feet pound up the stairs. Only an old FM radio in the kitchen murmurs classic country tunes and the morning news from KQRS. That's how an ordinary weekday begins. While the coffee maker sputters, I, an aging man to whom life has handed both love and pain, let myself remember, sometimes you have to just to stay sane. I divorced back in 2014. A deployment to Afghanistan, routine for career guard soldiers like me. Camo, checkpoints, guys who ask no unnecessary questions. I flew home early, Saturday instead of Monday, because paperwork cleared faster than expected. Dawn, quiet stairwell. The familiar scent of the Minneapolis apartment building. My key turned, I stepped inside. Wrong size sneakers at the door, a stranger's jeans over the armchair, and then oil on canvas. My wife tangled in someone else's arms. Bed sheets in knots, her wide-eyed fear, his cocky half grin. I couldn't forgive. It wasn't pride. Something inside simply snapped like a blade driven in and left to rust. I sold my pickup, hired an attorney. The custody fight was brutal, but I won. My son, 10, stood beside me without a word. My daughter, 6, clung to my hand as if it were a life raft. We managed, no whining, no self-pity. I worked swing shifts at the rail yard. They went to school. The house in St. Paul wasn't fancy, but it was ours. 5 bedrooms, warm in winter. Floors I'd laid myself, yard toys bought bit by bit. We held on. Then came 2019, a buddy's birthday cookout out in Stillwater. Brisket, light beer, old friends. She was there. Leah, large brown eyes, shy smile. Flinched at sharp laughs, winced when someone slammed a cooler lid. Later a friend whispered, her husband's a bully. Tracks everything she does, explodes when he drinks, smacks her and the kids. 2 girls, 4 and 11. We texted after that. Nothing heavy, stickers, check-ins, goodnight notes. Half a year passed. Then, could we talk? We sat in my truck outside her duplex. She spoke fast, half whispering, scared the neighbors might hear. I, a man who'd stopped believing in second chances, felt something thaw beneath old winter ice. I asked my kids, now 17 and 12. They traded glances. Dad, if she's kind and her girls are safe with us, bring them. I drove over, alone. Expected a brute. Met a scrawny 5'5" drunk with a cigarette and a sneer. Words failed, fists followed. I'm not proud, yet I'd do the same. We packed Leah's things, buckled her daughters in, headed home. A new life started. Her girls accepted me instantly. Mine were cautious at first, then the 4 blended like cousins at a long reunion. Mornings were a blur. Elementary school, middle school, my son's community college, my graveyard shift. Leah cleaned, cooked, laughed again. Evenings, the big oak table buzzed with voices. It felt unreal, peaceful. We married. 30 days between her divorce decree and our courthouse vows. Nearly a year of calm. Then, it unraveled. Her youngest let it slip. Mom sees the other guy when you're at work. I doubted, then checked. Truth hurts fast. I sent all 4 kids to Valleyfair for the day. Rides, funnel cakes, prepaid wristbands. Then sat across from Leah at the dining table. Quiet, no shouting. Why? She sighed. Everything's fine here, maybe too fine. You don't yell, you don't hit, you barely drink, there's no music blaring. The house feels like a clinic. With him, it's crazy, alive. He swears he's changed, won't lay a hand on me again. And well, the sex is wild. The floor seemed to tilt. Anger never flared, only emptiness. I grabbed a duffel, drove 3 nights on overtime, slept in the crew cab. Came back, she was gone. House key hooked neatly on the dog's leash. Goodbye. 3 days later, she returned for a box from the closet, stood in the doorway, hair covering her face. I saw the bruise, purple, swollen, ugly, felt nothing. No pity, no rage, just hollow. A year I patched myself up. Work helped. Steel tools occupy restless hands. One evening that same buddy said, "Quit rescuing folks who live in mud. Some need it like air, prov bile. Now it's just me and my son. He's 21, works IT, lifts weights. My daughter married last fall, moved to Denver. Her husband's a vascular surgeon. They're fine. Nights my boy and I sit quietly, sometimes chess, sometimes ribs on the smoker. He laughs when I crash at 9, I grumble when he stumbles in at midnight, and the house is silent. True silence, the kind that says, it's over, keep walking. You made it, you're alive." When I was in law school, I worked part-time as an assistant at a small but reputable law firm. The job wasn't hard. Carry documents, read through case files, sit in on hearings, and learn from the experienced attorneys. I took the internship seriously. I wanted to see how all the theory we were cramming in class actually played out in real life. I found family court cases the most gripping. Real emotion, real stakes, better drama than any stage play. There's one case I'll never forget. On paper, it looked like a routine divorce. The client was a man in his early 40s, tall, calm, well-dressed, polite, but his eyes, they looked worn, like someone who had aged 10 years in a month. He and his wife had 3 children. The oldest was 12, the middle one 7, and the youngest 3. He was a business owner, ran a mid-sized construction company, spoke clearly with no bitterness, said divorce was necessary, it's the right thing to do. At first, it seemed like his wife just wanted to leave quietly, no drama. But it turned out to be more complicated. The man had discovered his wife was cheating, the usual way, found messages by accident. I wasn't snooping, he said, just stumbled upon something and couldn't unsee it. Then I started connecting dots, and everything fell into place. The affair was confirmed. Worse yet, there was a strong chance the youngest child wasn't his. He filed for divorce, wanted to keep it civil, said he was willing to pay child support, split the assets, no court fights, as long as the kids were spared the pain. They didn't ask for any of this, he said quietly. There was no anger in his voice, just a kind of sadness, a sense of acceptance. At first, his wife seemed to agree. But something shifted, maybe pride, maybe fear he'd go through with a paternity test and drag it into a financial battle. At the next hearing, out of nowhere, her lawyer filed a motion requesting DNA testing. Her request, not his. She stood up in court and said loud and clear, "If you're so sure you've been lied to, then test them all. Go ahead. Maybe you'll be ashamed when you see the truth." She said it with defiance, almost a performance. But beneath that anger, you could hear something else. Anxiety. The attorney I worked for glanced at me and shook his head. I didn't understand why at the time. Later I would. The process dragged on. The test was scheduled. In the meantime, it was all just legal procedure. Filings, formal responses, positioning. The husband remained calm, too calm. The wife grew tense, defensive, more aggressive in her tone, as if trying to provoke a reaction, find some weakness. And then, the final hearing. The results were in. The judge opened the folder, flipped through the papers, and paused. For a few seconds, she just sat there staring. I saw something I'd never seen before, a judge completely lose her composure. No emotion in her voice, just stunned stillness. She read out paternity, not established, for any of the 3 children. The room went silent. The man sat perfectly still, hands resting on his knees, head slightly bowed. He didn't move, didn't say a word. And his wife, she said nothing for a moment. Then in a voice so soft it barely reached the mic, like she was talking to a friend in her kitchen, she said, "Well, I thought at least 2 were his. How am I supposed to find their dads now?" The air just froze. No outrage, no breakdown, no shouting, just silence. Somewhere behind us, a clerk dropped a pen. It rolled across the tile floor, the sound cutting through the stillness like a pin in a cathedral. The judge wrapped up the formalities. The session was closed. We stepped out of the courtroom. The man turned to thank the attorney, shook my hand too, then walked away. No hesitation, no looking back. There was no anger on his face, just emptiness, like he had just closed the book on one life and was quietly stepping into another, stripped of illusions. That day, I understood something about the truth. It doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it arrives cold, quiet, and merciless. And it shows up right when you least expect it.
I used to think infidelity was something that happened to other people. The weak ones, the irresponsible, those who had long stopped caring, people who didn't value their families. Not us, not me and Hannah. Things weren't perfect, no, but we were honest. We'd built something real over the years, raised 3 kids together. I believed that our slightly worn out but sturdy life was built on trust. I met Hannah in college. She studied literature. I was in mechanical engineering. We were a strange match, but it worked. We moved in fast, married even faster, and before we knew it, Noah was born. I was 23, she was 22. He came into this world frail, spending his first month in intensive care. For the next 2 years, we were in and out of hospitals. Hannah was his world. I took extra shifts, night jobs, anything to cover the bills. Then came the twins, Emily and Grace. It felt like everything was settling. No big dreams or beach house fantasies. Just an old Toyota I kept trying to fix, family movie nights, and the sound of the girls giggling in the living room. That was happiness to me. When Hannah told me she was pregnant with our 4th, I didn't flinch. I even smiled. It wasn't planned, sure, but I thought, we'll make it work, just like we always do. The baby was a boy. We named him Caleb. But right away, something felt off. Darker skin, deep brown eyes, a slightly almond shape to his lids. Not like me, not like Hannah. I joked, maybe he got it from my great-grandfather. There's a rumor he had Turkish roots. Hannah laughed too, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Months passed. Caleb grew. He laughed, babbled, crawled into our hearts. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling, as though a stranger had found a place in our home. I hated myself for it. I didn't tell anyone. Not even myself, not really. Until one night I stood over his crib watching him sleep, and this thought crept in. What if he's not mine? No, that's insane. Still, I got a DNA test. Quietly, anonymously. Then lived the next 2 weeks like a ghost, fixing pipes, grocery runs, homework with the girls. Pretending everything was normal while something sharp scraped at my insides. The results came by email. I opened the file, confused at first by all the charts, markers, percentages. Then my eyes locked on a bold line. Probability of biological relationship, 0%. I stared, frozen. Then I laughed, a dry, cracked sound. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room, scream. But I didn't. I just sat there, in silence. For hours, maybe. I don't remember. That evening I confronted Hannah. The kids were asleep. I showed her the results. She didn't cry, didn't shout. She went pale, lips trembling, and said, I don't know how it happened. I'm sorry. Sorry. For what, stabbing me in the back? Feeding me lies? Letting me raise another man's child as my own? I waited for her to deny it, to name someone, to say it was a mistake, just one time. But nothing. Just that small, broken, I'm sorry. I didn't sleep that night. Just chain-smoked in the kitchen, watching a candle flicker beneath the family photo. In the morning, I drove to the garage and stayed there. Should I leave? Kick her out? But what about the kids? About Caleb? How do you tell a child you're not his father? I came home that evening. The kids didn't notice anything. Emily showed me a drawing, our family. Me, Hannah, the kids, Caleb included. At the top she'd written, "My family is my fortress." I almost wept. 2 weeks passed. I slept on the couch, talked to the kids, made dinner, did pickups and drop-offs. But Hannah and I, nothing. She didn't try to explain, didn't ask for forgiveness, just waited, like she knew it wasn't hers to ask. One evening, coming home from work, I saw a man leaving our building. He glanced at the apartment numbers. Normally I wouldn't have cared, but then Hannah ran out after him, her face panicked. The man muttered something, walked away. She stared after him like she was afraid he wouldn't come back. When she saw me standing there, she froze, pale again. I said nothing, just walked past. Later that night, she came to the kitchen, sat across from me, hands shaking. That was him, Caleb's real father. I wasn't even surprised, just stared into the table. She told me it happened 2 years ago, when I was away working on a contract upstate. Her mother was hospitalized. I barely called. Work was crazy. He was a friend from college. Showed up, offered help, stayed around. One thing led to another. Once. Maybe more. She wasn't sure. I filed for divorce. No yelling, no drama. Just papers. Hannah didn't fight it. I packed a few things and moved out. The kids stayed with her for now. I still saw them every day. Even Caleb. He ran up to me, called me dad, and I couldn't bring myself to correct him. A month later, my father called. He didn't know what had happened. Asked how I was. I told him, divorced. There was silence. Then, because of her? I said yes. He sighed like he already knew, then added, "You did what you had to. But remember, being a father isn't just blood, it's heart. Caleb's still a kid. He didn't choose any of this." A few more months passed. Then came a letter. Hannah filed for child support for all 4 kids, including Caleb. I went to court. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s, read through the documents. I handed her the DNA results. She paused. "But he's legally your son." I was deceived, I said. I filed to contest paternity, another round of bureaucracy, psychologists, evaluations. Meanwhile, Caleb got sick, breathing issues. I visited him in the hospital. He was on 4th when he saw me. He cried and reached out. For the first time in months, I hugged him. Hannah stood in the corner, silent, hollow, like someone who'd aged a decade in a season. I didn't know what to feel. How do you erase a child you raised? 6 months passed. I rented a small apartment near the kids' school. Saw them almost daily, Caleb too. The court eventually ruled I wasn't liable for Caleb's support, but I could still visit, my request. Hannah moved in with her parents. We rarely spoke. The kids still saw her. I tried not to hate her. But forgiveness, I'm not there yet. You know, when a family falls apart, it feels like the world is ending. But then through the ashes and pain you see, life goes on. Kids grow. The sun still rises. And even among the ruins you can build something new. Not a castle maybe, but a shelter, and a heart that still has room for warmth.